Greetings and salutations. Thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're going to talk about a classic Pickering Phono Cartridge. It is the Pickering P-mount Phono Cartridge introduced in the early 1980s. And I'm not quite sure when these went out of production, but they are no longer in production today. As a matter of fact, no Pickering cartridge is in production today. Although there could be Pickering cartridges made, but the company that now owns Pickering has decided to retire the name. We'll talk about that in more depth as the video goes on. Before we get into it, let's talk a little bit about what a P-mount cartridge is, for those of you who may not be familiar with this concept. A P-mount phono cartridge is part of a system that Technics introduced in 1980 called the T4P tone arm system. And a T4P tone arm has a cartridge that plugs directly into the end of the arm and is held in with a screw. The idea behind this system was to make a high-quality tone arm that didn't need a lot of fiddling with, a lot of adjustment as far as vertical tracking force and anti-skate and vertical tracking angle, and it was supposed to be very easy. You just pop the cartridge in, and there you go. They decided that cartridges should weigh 6 grams, and that the tracking force for the T4P system would be 1.25 grams. Of course, any manufacturer that makes a P-mount cartridge has to adhere to those specifications. The cartridge must be 6 grams in weight, and it must be able to track at 1.25 grams, and it must be, of course, dimensionally correct so that the stylus tracks properly on a pre-aligned T4P tone arm. The only company that's ever stuck to these specifications as far as their cartridges are concerned is Audio-Technica. To this day, you can buy T4P cartridges by Audio-Technica that are 6 grams and track perfectly on a factory setup T4P tone arm. Everybody else has had a little twist on the idea, including Pickering, and we'll talk about that as we look at the specifications for the Pickering TE cartridge. Now, before we get too deep into this, I have to say I do have a bias toward Pickering cartridges. I love them, and they are sort of like the foo-foo higher end brand name of Stanton. The Pickering Company was founded in the 40s, in 1946, by a fellow named Norman Pickering, who was an engineer who was developing magnetic phono cartridges for broadcast to play back both commercial records and transcription discs of the day. And the quality of the cartridges was so good that he ended up selling to the public as well. Pickering was bought in 1950 by Stanton Magnetics, who are still in business today, and for many, many years they were run by both companies. Therefore, they were run side by side, the Pickering Company and the Stanton Company, and they shared a lot of design features over the years. Let's talk particularly about this cartridge, the Pickering TE. It has a 4.4 millivolt output. The frequency response is 20 to 20,000 hertz. Channel balance is within 1.5 dB. I do not think that the stereo separation numbers here are correct, and the reason why I say that is because I have actually found 2 different sets of specs for this cartridge, and also if you compare this set of specifications to its sister, the Stanton 720EE, the 720EE is claiming 28 dB of stereo separation, and I'm guessing that this is between 28 and 30 on this cartridge as well. The Pickering DE stylus that it comes with has a 0.3 by 0.7 mil elliptical tip, and the tracking force is recommended anywhere between 75 and 1.5. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit here, because you will notice that the weight of the cartridge is listed at 5.5 grams, and that 5.5 gram weight is the cartridge without a stylus on it. So if you put the stylus on, it adds a gram. So if you have a T4P tone arm that is set up to track with a 6 gram cartridge at 1.25 grams, you actually end up with a tracking force of about 1.55 grams is what it came up on my little Stylus force gauge, which is so neat to have. I haven't had one of those up until now. Glad I had it too, because my Technics turntable will allow me to adjust for proper tracking force, which in my case I wanted to track at 1.25 grams. Now it'll track fine at 1.6. The only problem is that you have to readjust the anti-skate on a Technics turntable, and on some of them that is a screw that is under the label that says anti-skate's already set to 1.25 grams, and with no scale or calibration or test record to be able to set it, I'd rather set the tracking force to what the anti-skate is set at, if that makes any sense to you. And it tracks pretty well at 1.25 grams. Here's what it looked like when it arrived in its box, the Pickering P-mount cartridge from the seller, and as advertised, it was new in the box and had never been used before and came with the proper stylus guard and everything else. And here it is on the turntable. So how does this compare to, like, let's say the Audio-Technica 92 ECD or 311P or EP rather, or even the 3482P? Well, first of all, the stereo is fantastic from this cartridge, and I do have I have a soft spot for the sound of Pickering cartridges. We've talked about them before on this channel, and there's just something that is different even from their Stanton counterparts about the sound of a Pickering cartridge. There's something about the high end going on that just makes them so clean and crisp, and the detail is amazing coming up off the grooves. You can hear things. The music just has so much depth, and you can hear things that you don't get with other cartridges. It's just that simple. They're not there. It's this, whatever this is not there on like the Audio-Technica cartridges. And the overall sound of this cartridge, as far as I'm concerned, now this is just my ears, it sounds better than anything else I have in my collection. This is not the first one of these that I have owned, by the way. This is about the third one, and I was just so tickled pink to see another one that I had to snap it up. I had bought one a couple of years ago, and unfortunately I ended up having to sell it before I could do a video about it or talk about it or do anything with it. So I was happy to find another one in new old stock condition. So I do have a soft spot for the sound of these carts. Now, the only trick is we are dealing with a out-of-production classic cartridge here, and finding replacement styli may be difficult. And there are a lot of pitfalls when you're looking for styli for this particular body style of cart, and that is because there is the Stanton L720EE. We've talked about this. I had one of these cartridges, which comes with the D71 EE stylus. This cartridge was in production, and then it was out of production, and then Stanton reintroduced it several years ago, sometime after 2000, and they built a bunch of them, and now they're out of production again. And Stanton just does not do a good job making styli these days. I'm sorry. Any of the Stanton replacement styli that you could buy for either this cart or the Pickering we were just looking at, or the Stanton 500 or the Pickering V15, they all use this same body style, and the styli are all interchangeable. Anything that Stanton is producing for this body style of cart today, including the D71 EE, is just not as good as what I'm getting from the Pickering DE stylus here, which, as you can see if I zoom in, is very similar. It's the same shape, other than the stylus guard and everything is the same, other than the name on the side of the stylus and the actual construction of the stylus itself. It looks like the 71 EE. There are many Pickering stylus types that will fit this, the kind that have the long-haired brush on them, and some of the older Stanton styluses for the 500 with the brush will fit. The only trick about getting them to work, of course, is being able to properly adjust the tracking force, because most of those styli want to track at something higher than 1.25 grams. So I suggest that you do some hunting and see if you can find an original Pickering DE stylus if you find one of these, or if you have a Stanton D71 EE on your L720 EE cartridge. See if you can find one of these. It is an upgrade and it's a better sounding stylus. Now, I was doing some research this morning and I found that there's a company in Japan who makes custom replacement styluses named Jico. Now, it's J-I-C-O. It could be Jico or Jico. I don't quite know how that's pronounced, but I'll call it Jico for this video. They do make a modern replacement stylus for these cartridges and also the Stanton 500. And, of course, Stanton makes styli that work in the Stanton 500. They're still producing the Stanton 500 today. The only problem is that the Stanton folks, it's gone crazy on me here for a second, make styli that are A, spherical, which is okay. I don't have a problem with that stylus shape. But they want you to track them at 3.5 to 4 grams. That's too much. So if you want a truly light tracking Stanton stylus, which is what you would need for this cart or the Pickering TE, then you're going to have to look at another manufacturer or find new old stock. My advice is to stay away from the D71 EE stylus. There's a lot of them on the market, and the later versions of them just don't track right. A lot of sibilance, a lot of mistracking, a lot of inner groove distortion. Don't like them. This stylus, on the other hand, has zero inner groove distortion. The only thing that I have noticed is it is a little bit sibilant. Now, this could very well be because of the fact that this particular stylus, the one that's on my cartridge, has been sitting on a shelf for 20 years, and it will need to loosen up a little bit. Of course, that's just break in, and all you do to break things in is play records, right? So we'll see how it goes. And of course, at some point in time, if I decide that the mistracking is not calming down, I can always crank the tracking force up to 1.5, and it probably will do a little better at that. But it should track properly at 1.25 grams with a range of 0.75 to 1.5 grams. It should be just fine at 1.25, which is the P-mount standard tracking force. So we're going to give it a spin and see how it does. Other than a slight, tiny little bit of sibilance, the cartridge just sounds amazing on anything I've played on it so far, and I've had it since yesterday. So that is my latest fun thing to play with here, the Pickering TE P-mount cartridge. Pickering made a lot of great P-mount cartridges, guys. Most of them are very expensive. They even had cartridges with very advanced stereohedron-shaped styli on it. This is actually the low end of the Pickering P-mount line, and they made some cartridges that were not compatible with Stanton carts, which is an issue today because getting the styli can be difficult. But this one takes the same styli as a Stanton 500, Pickering V15, or Stanton L720EE, or the KAB USA. They have a cartridge that is made on this body, and they're calling it the Stanton 400, which is basically it's a Stanton 500 cartridge that's a half-inch mount, and it has a D71 EE stylus on it, and it's just sort of an improvement on the 500. So anyway, this is the latest thing we've been playing with. In the next video we're going to do here, we're going to talk about the new Stylus force gauge I got today, which made setting up this cartridge properly on a turntable without a weighting system. The only way that you can actually set up a Q300 or Q200 by Techniques is to have a Stylus force gauge. They don't offer you any indication on the tone arm itself unless if you go off of the factory standard, which is on the tone arm. If you line it up, it'll say this is 1.25 grams. But if you're going to be doing something a little bit different, you're going to have a Stylus gauge. Got me one of those, and we'll talk about that in the next video. Thanks for watching. Waving bye-bye. Talk to you again soon.